Hello! Howdy. Hi, everybody. Sam Goodman. Really fucking scary stories. How are you doing today? I hope things are going super creepy. I hope things are super creepy for you wherever you find yourself. Thank you for joining us again today for another episode of Really Fucking Scary Stories Season 3. I hope that today's adventure brings you all kind of tingly, skin crawly things, whether you're listening in your car, listening at home while you're doing some mopping or doing some cleaning, doing some dishes, whether you're hanging out at work and you've got us pulled up in the background, right behind that fake Word document that you're like pretending to work on, like while people walk by, but you're really just tuning in and hanging out and doing all this fucking creepy crawly stuff with us. I hope that you're enjoying the show, and I hope that you get a kick out of today's episode. But before we do that, do me a favor, head over to www.palehorsemediaco.com, or I guess the easier way is just go to palehorsemedia.co. Either one of those will take you there. You can check out this podcast. You can check out all of our others, such as Hey Y'all with Sam Goodman or the Hot Nerd Podcast. We have a pretty sweet merch store, if I do say so myself. I rant about it all the time, about how I hate shitty t-shirts, how I hate shitty hats. And I've tried these out. I've tested them for you. Half of my wardrobe is the Hot Nerd stuff, Hey Y'all stuff, and Really Fucking Scary stuff. Really Fucking Scary Stories podcast stuff. I might have some scary stuff in my closet. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what we're hiding in there? But I'm telling you, I've tried them. I like them. I'm a nerd for good t-shirts, a nerd for good hats. So if you're looking for a way to support the show, if you want to let your paranormal and true crime freak flag fly, the merch store is a great way to do that. All of your support quite literally helps keep the lights on around here. It lets us continue to bring you this amazing content, not only from this show, but from all of the others and all the other shit that we dabble in. It allows us to continue to do that. If you're looking for a very, 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 very easy way to show us some love, a very easy way to support the show and all things that we have going on, just scroll down, give us some stars, write us a little review, leave us some kind words. All of that stuff helps us a ton. Share it with your friends, your family, your frenemies. Drop it over on your Facebook, throw it over on your Instagram. Give us a shout out on LinkedIn. We're on there too at Pale Horse Media Co., the Hot Nerd Podcast, me. You can just search Sam Goodman. You'll see my ugly mug there. Another really cool way that you can support the show is by heading over to palehorsemedia.co, or just heading over to sugoodman.com, or any of our websites, or sliding into the DMs of any of our social media. But I say the websites because we have a handy dandy contact form on all of those. And so a way you can support the show is by contributing to it. If you've had a brush with the paranormal, if you have been around some true crime stuff or have experiences with true crime, if you want to come on this show and share your story, or if you're nervous and you don't want to do that and you just want us to tell it for you or share it for you, get into contact, share your story with us, let us know what's happened, weird, creepy, crawly, everything in between, and we'd be glad to have you on, or we'd be glad to share your story. If you've got stuff for Q&A, if you've got any of that stuff, just get into contact. We love having those conversations with you. We really, really, really appreciate it. We really appreciate all of your support. Thank you so much for all the kind words, all the great input that we've received so far. You all make this thing worthwhile. You all make it worth doing. Everyone out there hanging out listening, you're the part that makes this fun for me. So I love this stuff, but it makes it that much more fun to get to interact with other people who love diving into the creepy crawly, the macabre, and all things kind of fucking weird. Because let's just face it, we're just a bunch of weirdos hanging out, talking about weirdo stuff. And that's what we're going to do right now. Today, we're going to talk about the story of the Villisca Axe Murder House. The Villisca Axe Murder House in Iowa. The name kind of speaks for itself. And it's similar. It's similar to some of the other stories that we have told here on Really Fucking Scary Stories. In the fact that it's a paranormal location now that started as the scene of a pretty fucking gruesome true crime. In the very, very early morning hours of June the 11th, 1912, sometime between midnight and 5 a.m., 8 people were bludgeoned to death with an axe inside the home of the Moore family, including all 6 family members, 2 friends, and 1 of the daughters. 6 of the victims, unfortunately, were children. The night of June the 10th, mere hours before the slayings, The family had gone to church, which ended around 9:30 p.m. They must have had some, they were really getting it at church, going to 9:30. They arrived back at the house around 9:45, somewhere around 10. Cigarette butts in the attic initially led investigators to believe that the killer snuck into the attic while the family was out and hid there until they fell asleep. Like most people in the area at the time, the Moore family didn't lock their doors to their house when they went to church. Look, I grew up in rural Appalachia, and again, that's how you know I'm OG Appalachia, is I don't say Appalachia. I grew up in OG Appalachia, and I don't, people just now started locking their doors, like recently. I remember all through my childhood, I would just be that crazy 16-year-old kid out doing crazy 16-year-old kid stuff, and I would just come home, the doors would just be unlocked. I didn't have a fucking house key. I just came in. So it's not, I don't think it was kind of strange. It's not strange that they didn't lock their doors. The parents, Josiah and Sarah Moore, were the first victims. The killer only used the blade of the weapon on Josiah, who received the most brutal beatings. The rest of the victims were murdered with the blunt side of the axe. And the axe belonged to Josiah. And I go, because I don't know which one's worse, right? I'm trying to go, if you're going to get it from an axe, if that's going to be the way you pop your clogs, if you go back to season 2, if that's going to be a way that you pop your clogs, I don't know. I think the sharpen would be better. So I'm just going, oh God, that's just fucking brutal. Fucking brutal. But nevertheless, again, Josiah was the only one that got the blade. The rest of them got that kind of flat side of the axe. The family friends who were staying in the guest room, Ina Mae Stillinger, age 8, and Lena Gertrude Stillinger, age 12, were the last to be killed. All of the victims, except for Lena, appeared to have been asleep when they died. Lena was the only one who appeared to have had defensive wounds and was laying across the bed. So pretty much everybody was just asleep, doing normal sleepy time stuff, except for Lena, who woke up during the attack. Again, I don't know which one is worse, but she did fight back, so good for her. It's a sad, tragic thing, but good for her. She put up a fight. The axe was left in the guest room next to a 4-pound piece of slab bacon. At some point, the killer had covered all the mirrors in the house with blankets, clothes, and cooked himself a plate of food, which was left untouched in the kitchen. He also left behind a bowl of bloody water. There is something so weird about those fucking details, right? Just weird, strange. What the fuck? So the mirrors being covered and all of that stuff, it immediately draws my attention to, and I always fuck up this word, but funerary practices, the practices around funerals, around some of those kind of old school stuff, you're putting the silver dollars, the quarters or whatever over the eyes, right? And there's legend around that about that, so you can pay your 2 pence to get into the whatever, right? But that was a common practice from a lot of the stuff that I watch, right? A lot of the stuff I get into, Ask a Mortician and some other kind of wonky YouTube channels. But that was a common practice because, around funerals at least, because you didn't want the spirit to get trapped there, right? Like the mirror was either, there were some ideas that maybe it was a portal into something, or that the spirit of the dearly departed would find their way into the mirror, get confused, get lost, right? Even some of those practices about the way you remove bodies out of the houses, feet first, so they can't look back. That way they don't find themselves wandering back into the house. So as I kind of learned that as I was researching this particular case, I found that super interesting that was there. And that's where my mind automatically goes. As far as the bowl of bloody water, maybe just washing up, maybe cleaning, maybe something more ritualistic. Who knows? But that's my initial thought when I hear that they covered up all the mirrors, all that kind of sort of stuff. Really fucking strange that there's this big slab, not strange that there's a slab of bacon, but strange that I'm I just murdered this entire fucking family and some of their friends, and look, slab bacon, my favorite. Let me go cook up a meal, but then didn't eat it, which is kind of strange. Again, unless maybe part of traditional practice or something that I'm missing there. Just fucking weird. But the gruesome killings were discovered the next morning when Mary Peckham, the Moore's neighbor, noticed that the family hadn't started their morning chores around 7 a.m. Good thing for nosy neighbors back then, I guess, right? She called Russ Moore, Josiah's brother, who let himself in with a copy of the house key. So now apparently it's locked. I guess they locked the doors now. After discovering the bodies of the Stillingers, He called the local police officer, who called in investigators. There were plenty of suspects, but the murder was ultimately never solved. One suspect, Reverend George Kelly, was actually tried for the murders. Kelly was a traveling minister who was in town the night of the crime. He was at the service the Moore family attended before their deaths, but inexplicably left town between 5 and 5:30 a.m. So super suspicious, little suspicious there. He showed a suspicious interest in the murders as well, after being in and out of trouble with the law for sending obscene material through the mail. So he had a little bit of trouble, I guess it sounds like, maybe, and define obscene material back in the early 1900s. But he had also had a stint in a mental hospital. He was arrested for the murders in 1917. He confessed, then recanted, eventually was tried and acquitted. It just seems like it was a lot easier to get away with some fucking shit back in the day. But it seems that most people didn't believe that he was mentally or physically capable of the murder. So for whatever reason, they kind of looked at him and went, no. There's just no way he didn't actually do this. And as we all know, as true crime junkies and watching a lot of true crime stuff and a lot of the stuff that we've talked about on here as well, that it's not that hard to coerce a confession. And who knows what the police practices were back in the day. I mean, police practices today aren't that great in a lot of ways. So I can only imagine that they were more brutal and more barbaric back then. I'd like to think that we've maybe gotten a little bit better since the early 1900s. But who knows? So due to his mental state, due to some of those other contributing factors, just mostly around mentality and just his physical capabilities, they truly believed that his confession was just him either blowing hot air, trying to get attention, or it was coerced. Either way, he was acquitted. He was not found guilty. Whether he remains a suspect or not, who knows, right? But that's where the true crime bit of this kind of stops, right? Is that a bunch of people brutally murdered, fucking horrible death, a bunch of weird shit. The mirrors covered the bloody bowl, cooked a meal, all that kind of strange stuff, the cigarette butts in the attic, and then the case goes cold and is ultimately never solved. So the case is never solved. So as we transition, though, over the years, it goes from true crime to a paranormal thing. There starts to be some crazy fucking shit that starts to happen. So some ghostly encounters. So naturally, a house with such a dark and mysterious past quickly starts to attract rumors of a haunting. The house was lived in for years after the murder, although families never really seemed to stay for long. Sounds familiar with haunted houses. And look, number one, I don't think I would move into an axe murder house. Maybe. Who knows? But I don't think I would do it willingly unless, I was kind of forced into that situation. But yeah, and then I think if I got in there and I started to experience some stuff, if I could, and I would use any means possible, I think I would get the fuck out of there. I think I would just get out of there. But there's really a lot of phenomenon that is reported around the house. Disembodied footsteps, things moving, voices, apparitions, shadows, bad vibes, you name it. This Axe Murder House has it. It's got everything you want on the paranormal menu. It's basically been on every ghost hunting show, you name it. Of course, our friends Ghost Adventures, right? They've been there. Scariest Places on Earth, all the Essential Spooky podcasts, including now really fucking scary stories. It's been talked about pretty much everywhere. So it's just really fucking haunted. So you've got this really good, and really good, I guess, maybe not the best way to put it. You got this really fucking chilling, how about to say chilling, unsolved crime, and then you have this bone-chilling ghost story that follows along with that as well. And just as I researched, you can look at the house, you can go online and find it, you can actually go and check it out. But what's really insane is that they have a board, or they had at the time that I'm recording this and looking at the pictures of pictures on like one of the court boards that has like folks that have got like red marks and scratches on them and kind of like all of that stuff. So you can see the evidence. You can still go tour the house. You can do all of that stuff if you want to. But again, true crime that then eventually evolved into ghost stories and legends around the house. And the house really does have it all. Lots of reports of the footsteps, lots of reports of things moving around, lots of apparitions, shadows, and just that kind of weird, strange feeling that you get when you go into places where you're like, I don't really know what this is, but it doesn't feel good. Like it just doesn't feel right. You get like the goosebumps, you get like all of that stuff. But